Next we have ECS Botanics, ASX code ECS. The company is a GMP certified producer of high quality organic medicinal cannabis known for its innovative, sustainable cultivation practices and focus on meeting growing global demand. Presenting for the company today is Nan-Maree Schoerie, who is Managing Director. Nan, thank you so much for your time. Over to you.
Perfect. All right. Well, I apologize to all the audience that you have to listen to another South African. It's the afternoon of South Africans, but my topic is very, very different in that I am the Managing Director of a company called ECS Botanics. Do you have the slides up? Yep. Okay. So ECS Botanics is a medicinal cannabis company. If you go to the second slide, please, Abby, I'll just talk through the background. So we were established in 2018. Initially, ECS Botanics established in Tasmania as a hemp or CBD growing operation. And in 2021, they acquired my company, which is called Murray Meds, or was called Murray Meds, and we're based up in Northwest Victoria. And subsequent to the acquisition, we've actually divested the original ECS Botanics assets down in Tassie, and we focused our efforts on the Northwest Victorian facility, where we cultivate and manufacture GMP grade, also organic GMP grade medicinal cannabis. I'm not sure how much people know about the medicinal cannabis industry, but it's growing very rapidly, and I'll talk a little bit later about the size of the market. But the industry is growing rapidly and becoming more and more accepted by doctors. For example, we had a webinar last night with one of the leading gastroenteritis specialists here in Melbourne. And they were talking about the benefit of medicinal cannabis in treating IBS or irritable bowel syndrome. So there are new applications coming about all the time, and it's certainly becoming seen as a very valuable tool in the toolbox of doctors when they want to treat certain indications, primarily around things like MS, any sort of neuro issues, and then as well as depression, sleeping, and things like that. So there's many applications that are being identified, and a lot of scientific work going around proving the benefits of medicinal cannabis. So we are organic, and we have product that is grown both outdoors and also in what we call PCEs, but they're basically large, very sophisticated polytunnels. And these polytunnels are really producing, world-class quality flower. So not only are we supplying the Australian market, but about 30% of our business is now export, into a lot of it going into Germany and the UK, but also into New Zealand. So we're producing really good quality flower at a relatively low cost. So medicinal cannabis, well, cannabis is, anyone knows the background, was typically grown in attic spaces and basements where there was no lights and no, it was all undercover. And as a result of that, medicinal cannabis is often grown in an indoor facility where you use artificial lighting and artificial climate control. And that has benefits in that you can get very, very good control, but it comes at a massive cost, because not only to the cost of the power, but also the cost to the environment, the amount of energy that's used. So the cannabis industry is certainly not green when you look at those indoor facilities, but the way we grow it under the sun and in the soil, we are able to produce a really good quality product at a relatively low cost. And that is why Australia is being able to export product, because we can be very competitive globally, but also, as I said, produce a really good quality product. You want to go to the next slide? So you can see a little bit about the growth of the company there. We started in, as I said, 2019, 2020. Last year we produced 6.6 tons of cannabis on the facility, and this year we're expecting to produce about 9 tons. So the growth in terms of the volume of production is market. As you can see, there's a significant growth, and all of that product is being sold. One of the benefits that we've had of have the outdoor grow as well as the polytunnels is we can grow what you would typically call a B grade product. So it's a less it's a less pretty product. It still has the same level of THC and CBD in it, but it's not able to be exported. But there is a large market for people who want to have cheaper product. There's a lot of people who want to use medicinal cannabis but can't afford the premium grade products. And so the outdoor grow really manages to or satisfies that market. The PCEs, as I mentioned before, will then do the export and also the high-end local market. On the bottom left, you can actually see the growth in the business in terms of revenue. We made 20 million last year, so we had really good growth year on year. And also our COGS have sort of flattened out, so we're now managing to make much higher margins. The model of the company and what's happened is we started off as when I started Murray Meds, we started off by having a primary focus on growing cannabis for oil. So we were growing product that was then extracted to make oils. But the flower market has grown significantly, and it's now about 80% of the sales are actually flower. And so we shifted our business towards the flower business. We still do manufacture oils as well, but we shifted to the flower business following the market, I guess. And as I mentioned earlier, the fact that we discovered that we can actually produce really good quality flower at a low cost. But in that other space where I talk about the non-flower market, we've managed to secure a contract with a company called Geocan. It's for a technology called VesiSorb, which when you add it to an oil product, makes it a lot more bioavailable, about 4 times more bioavailable, and it's 3 times faster to act. And so the benefit of that is, again, it's a cost thing. Customers or patients who use our product containing VesiSorb will be able to use about 25% of the product to get the same amount of product in their bloodstream. So using the VesiSorb technology, which is a delivery system, it allows you to get a lot more bang for your buck. And so again, medicinal cannabis is very expensive and it's not covered by the PBS. So everything that we can do to help patients by bringing making the product more affordable, either by using VesiSorb, as I said, which then gives you more bioavailability, or by growing in a low-cost environment or low-cost model, is really, really beneficial. And that's why we're seeing the growth that we're seeing. But as a result of the agreement that we had with VesiSorb, we've actually moved from a B2B model to also have a B2C model. So we have our own brands in the market. If you want to go to the next slide. So that chart that you can see in the middle there, that's demonstrating the benefit of VesiSorb. You can see that it's 4 times more bioavailable. So these are all scientifically proven double-blinded studies at proper clinical trials that have shown evidence of the benefit of having the VesiSorb in a cannabinoid product for both CBD and THC. The other really exciting thing that we've done, which was about 4 or 5 months ago, is on the other side, we signed an agreement with a company called Terpogs. So those photographed at the bottom of the screen, those are 2 gentlemen that work for this company called Terpogs. They are a Californian company that invented a genetic called Skittles. And this genetic is significantly better in terms of winning awards. They win awards every year for being the best genetics. Their product, which what used to be called Skittles, is now called the Original Z because Wrigley said they couldn't call it Skittles. But this product it's not a high THC. It's around about a 20% THC, but it has significant benefits over other strains in that it's a really pleasant product to consume, and it also does really well in vapes. And so we've signed we signed a 10-year agreement with the VesiSorb manufacturer. We've signed an 8-year agreement with Terpogs to be able to sell their products outside of California. So the problem for Terpogs is because they're based in California, they're not allowed to sell outside of California because the rules in America are that it's federally illegal. So you can't sell even from California to Oregon, let alone from California to Australia. So by giving us the genetics and giving us the license to sell their product, we will now be supplying Germany, UK, New Zealand, and Australia with Terpogs products. And I guess the best way to explain this is I spoke about we do the Outdoor Grow, which is our budget brand flower. And loosely and jokingly, I like to sort of say that's as the the sort of goon bag side of, people who just want product, but they can't afford to buy, the really higher end product. Then we've got the midstream, which is the Avani product range, which is our product range that contains Vesisol. So we have good quality flower in there that's grown by us, as well as these unique and novel technologies that around delivery mechanisms, so that our patients can get more bang for their buck, and also a faster response for their medication. And then finally, on the other end, we've got the Terpogs, and this is a premium brand. So this is the Penfold range, I guess, of cannabis. These guys are very, very well known around the world in the cannabis community for their genetics, and the fact that ECS, and what is a relatively small Australian company, has managed to secure these contracts, I think bodes really well for us. So we're creating this platform where we have unique value propositions. So we have unique genetics coming from the Terpogs guys, we have the Vesisol product range, and then also we have the budget brand, which, if you think about it, the biggest competition we have in Australia is actually imports of flower from Canada. Canada has a glut of product, and so they've been supplying a lot of medicinal cannabis dried flower into Australia. But when you're on that budget brand side, it's very, very difficult for them to compete when they've got to compete against something that is locally grown, doesn't have all the freight costs, and also grown very economically, which is what we're doing with our outdoor medicinal cannabis grow. You want to go to the next slide? It's just the size of the market. You can see the market is significantly, if you look at the numbers in Canada, particularly, that's the Canadian market is fully recreational. So the volume of relative, their population is probably a little bit under double our population, but the amount of cannabis that the market for cannabis there is huge, and that's because it's a medical and a recreational market. And I think, down the line, when we look at what's happening globally, cannabis is becoming more and more widely available. And I think it is just a matter of time. It's obviously speculating, but I think it is only just a matter of time before it also becomes legally available in Australia. It's obviously, whether that's 2 years' time or 4 years' time, I don't know, but it will, it's pretty much going to happen. It's already happened in Germany. The German market is really taking off, and that's why we're exporting quite a lot of our product, because there's a very high demand in Germany, and Terpogs particularly will do exceptionally well there, because that market is quasi-rec. So you still have to buy it from a pharmacist, but you don't have to go. It's not really medical. It's more just controlled. They want to make sure they control the supply. But you can see that it's a significant market, and it's a growing market. Cannabis, 2 or 3 years ago, no one really knew anyone that was using, or maybe 3 years ago, no one knew anyone who was using medicinal cannabis. And now I'm pretty sure that everybody on this call knows someone who's using it, and someone who can speak to the benefits. So you've got that side of it. On the other side of it, 10% of the Australian population consume cannabis regularly, not every day, but regularly. So the market for recreational cannabis in Australia is currently, it's obviously an illegal market, is about 5 billion, according to the Pennington Institute. And the market for medical cannabis is about 600 million, 5 to 600 million. So you can see that 9 out of 10 people are actually getting their cannabis illegally at the moment. So the move towards legalization, I think, is inevitable as governments come to realize that, this has been going on for years and years and years. They're spending a lot of time policing it, and also there's a harm minimization approach, which is to say that if people are able to get their cannabis without going down the street and buying it from a drug dealer, that's got to be a much better way. But that's obviously just, my view of the world, but certainly it's the trends globally. So as I said, China is not going recreational, but certainly the German market is opened up. The UK market is growing very quickly. Poland has opened up, and so and so we'll see more and more of this as we go forward, and this market is growing. So it's still a very young market, and there's obviously been some teething troubles, particularly here in Australia. You might have seen some media around it where doctors are being a little bit too quick to write a script, but that will all normalize, and the market, as I said, generally the uptake and the acceptance of the use of cannabis has changed dramatically over the last few years. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so that's just a quick snapshot of our financials. This is FY24, so these are the results that we reported in August. You can see that, you know, we grew 31% in our revenue, 140% in our EBIT. We delivered a profit of 2 million, and we had 3.2 million in the bank. So, you know, the business is growing well. It's a tough market, but with these things that we've been doing with the new products coming through, we're seeing massive traction in our B2C market. And so we're very excited about where we're going and developing our own brand and having that brand, the Turpogs brand, the Avani brand, which is our brand, and also the Ozsun brand, which is our budget brand. We see those carrying real value. And our plan is obviously to become a very, very large producer here in Australia. We already are one of the largest producers in Australia, if not the largest, but to take that and then, you know, expand and have that global recognition, which we will be getting. The VesiSorb contract that we have as well, the 10-year agreement that we have to use VesiSorb, that is actually for Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and the UK. So again, we have this ability. We're just launching our first VesiSorb product will be launched before the end of the month. It's actually on its way, and it'll be in pharmacies in, you know, back end of next week. And then, you know, we'll take it from there. We'll take it into these global markets as well. So there's a lot of upside opportunity for us. Next slide, please. I like to show this slide because I always think it's, you know, it's very easy to say things and, you know, to say, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and not deliver it. This slide is unchanged from when I took over the organization in 2021. So we put forward our strategic plan for the next 3 years. So 2020 was already, or 2019-20 was already done. This slide hasn't changed. So everything we said we're going to do, we've done. The only thing that's not in here that we're doing that we didn't intend to do when we started was the flour, the budget brand flour. And the reason we did that is because the market for the oils is reduced. It's actually been replaced by soft gel capsules now. So we're seeing a big uptake of soft gel capsules, which is where the VesiSorb product is, and also with gummies. And again, we'll have VesiSorb in our gummies. So, but otherwise, the strategy, you know, if you go through all these, I'm not going to go through line by line, but everything we said we're going to do, we've achieved. So the 2024 to 2026 is actually all in place. The most recent thing we've done is we started with 5 PCEs or polytunnels. We then built another 6, and now we built another 6, and now we're doing another 9. So by the end of or early next year, we will have 26 of these PCEs. So, you know, a massive amount of growth in that space, and obviously investment in building these PCEs. We've also introduced heating and lighting so that we can grow all the way year round. And that's really just to meet the demand for our export business and our local business for premium flour. Next slide, please. It's a picture of a PCE on the top of those, one of our new PCs or polytunnels. On the left-hand side, you can see there the growth that we talked about in terms of the volume of product that we're producing. We are fairly uniquely GMP. So for the Australian market, you don't have to have a GMP manufacturing facility. You can actually just pack it in a GMP facility. But because we export, our whole facility is GMP. What that means for people who don't know the pharmaceutical industry is GMP means that you're manufacturing it to pharmaceutical standards. So the highest, when you walk into our manufacturing facility, it's like a hospital, and everyone's gowned up. And it's very, very hygienic. And that is because a lot of people who use our product are immunocompromised. So they have, you know, already have illnesses like cancer or MS or Parkinson's. And the last thing we want to do is give them a product that's not as, you know, as clean as it can possibly be. So we're very, very careful. Our product that goes to Germany does not get irradiated. So literally the product that comes out of those greenhouses actually is exactly what they receive. So for that reason, and you can see that greenhouse is very clean as well. The reason for that is because we want to make sure that there's no mold or bacteria or anything like that in the flour that could potentially make the patient unwell. The next slide, please. So I've touched on these. So these are the just some pictures, I guess. The Ozsun brand, which was launched last week, is taking off really, really well. So that is the budget brand that I clearly described as a green bag. earlier, but it really does meet a market where people want to use medicinal cannabis but can't afford to pay. That product sells at about $75 for 15 grams, whereas the normal flower that we sell, the Avani flower, is more like $135 for $110 for 10 grams. So it is significantly cheaper, and it does come from our outdoor grow. I mentioned about the VesiSorb. So the first product that's going to be launched is this CBD 25 that will be launched next week. We've assembled a medical advisory board, so we've actually managed to attract some of the best medicinal cannabis doctors in Australia to join us on our medical advisory board. We don't pay them a salary or a retainer, but we do obviously pay for them when they work for us, as we did last night with Dr. Chris Snyder, who did the gastroenteritis discussion yesterday. And we then pay him for the 2 hours, and at a very nominal fee. These people are passionate about Australian grown product. These doctors, they're passionate about the innovation that ECS is bringing to market, and they're very supportive of us. And so that's why they're on our medical advisory board. But what we use them for is we ask them to provide guidance in terms of applications, in terms of new product introductions, and also just guiding us in terms of what how we need to educate patients and doctors. And so they help us with that education process. All right, next slide. I think actually I can wrap up. I think I've gone through everything. This is just the highlights of what I've spoken about. But in summary, we're rapidly growing. We certainly building a very strong platform for further growth with the new technologies that we have with the VesiSorb and the terp hog. So there's a really exciting future for us. The change from B2B to B2C, we still have a large B2B customer base, and all of our export business is through to B2B. So that's still a very important part of our business, but we also are building our own brand, and we think that that's going to be very valuable. And I think I can wrap up there because we've got 5 minutes left.
Great. Thank you so much, Nan. So ECS aims to expand production to 13 tonnes by FY26. Could you elaborate on the steps being taken to meet this target and manage associated costs?
At this stage, the way we're going to do it is to focus more on all year round production, because at the moment we can only produce all year round in about 4 tunnels. By the end of this year, maybe 6. But ultimately, we would want to just ramp that up. And what the investment required there is a power upgrade, which we've already started to work with PowerCore to get that power upgrade so that we can actually provide lighting in winter. We use gas for heating, so we need to heat the PCEs to get the temperature right, but we need additional lighting because in winter, the days are too short. So cannabis needs 12 hours of good sunshine or artificial light.
And what proportion of your revenue growth do you anticipate coming from exports versus domestic sales, particularly in emerging markets such as Asia and North America?
Yeah, so for us, the target at the moment is more than 30%, and I think we're already there. I don't know how soon Asia is going to open up, and certainly North America is pretty saturated already with their own products. So the opportunity for us is in Europe, where it's an enormous market, certainly a very, very big market for us. And then I think, down the line, we'll see parts of Asia opening up, but it's, we're not banking on that. I think we see the growth really coming from taking market share in Australia and growing with the Australian market, and then also the European market where we're seeing significant growth.
And what distinguishes ECS's medicinal cannabis products from competitors in the key export markets?
Yeah, it's a good point. You wonder why people would, buy product from Australia and Europe. The reason for that is because the GMP. I also think Australia has a really strong brand in terms of agriculture and pharmaceuticals. We're a very trusted brand. And in the cannabis space, trust is a big deal. Our laboratories are all GMP. So when people buy a product in Europe, they know they're getting what what's on the label, I guess. So that's one of the reasons. But the other one is I think people just really like the quality of our product. We certainly had to send samples across before we ever got any business, and it's just gone from strength to strength. They just want to buy, different strains and more strains.
And with a 31% revenue increase on the PCP, what are the main drivers of this growth, and do you expect this trend to continue?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, on a percentage-wise, it's hard to keep growing at high percentage growth rates like that. But what we expect is we're at a transition point. So as I mentioned earlier, we've had the B2B, which was going really well. That has slowed down significantly. Not that we've lost any customers, but the market is very crowded in Australia. So that B2B Australian market has slowed down. Our B2B export market has gone significantly higher, and then the B2C is picking up. So I think it'll flatten a little bit, and then as we bring in the VesiSorb and the Terpogs, it's going to take off again. So it'll almost be like a Gen 2 of the growth as we realign the company to have these key differentiators that other competitors in the market don't have.
And gross margin increased to 35%. What operational efficiencies or strategic moves contributed to most significantly to this improvement?
So, I mean, we had a lot of waste. When you start up, we obviously don't talk about it a lot because it's not always good news, but you make mistakes as you in startups. So we had a few crops that, weren't as successful as what we, weren't able to be sold. That wasn't historically. So we've addressed all those issues now. We produce consistent, good quality product, and all of that then drops straight down to the gross margin line because you obviously have to pay for product that you can't sell if you have a bad crop. So we've done that. Our post-harvest costs have come down significantly because we've got a lot better at managing efficiently, and also we brought in some mechanization around trimming, which has contributed quite a lot as well. And we're going to see further growth in GM because or gross profit, because as we do more of this B2C, one of the big benefits of B2C is your revenue may not be that much higher, but certainly the margins are going to be much higher.
And then just more on the VesiSorb oils. So how do the oils enhance bioavailability, and how could this impact market share in the CBD segment?
Yeah, so a good question and a very technical question. It's a lipid-based technology or SEDS technology. So what it does is it makes, typically you would buy a cannabis oil would be in MCT, which is the carrier oil. That is not water soluble. So when it goes into your gut, it actually can't pass through your gut. So it has to get into the intestine before it can actually be absorbed into the body. Having a water soluble carrier, which is what the VesiSorb does, it makes it emulsifiable. It passes directly through the gut and is very quickly absorbed into the body, and also much more. So at the moment, when you use a medicinal cannabis, so a CBD and MCT oil, about 75% of it just passes through your body. It doesn't get absorbed. So you can imagine now with the 4 times more bioavailable, you're going to get a lot more of it into your system. And then the other thing is, as I said, it's a lot quicker. So one of the negatives of a capsule in the past was it took a very long time to respond. That's why people had oils, because you got it through your oral mucosal system. But now having a capsule that will be readily bioavailable, it means people don't have to put tinctures under the tongue and have that unpleasant taste in your mouth. And the other thing is, I mean, I don't know if I should say this out aloud, but capsules are not going to show up on any test.
What role does in-house genetics development play in your strategy, and how are these strains tailored to your production environment?
That's also a very interesting question. So we did a lot of work around in-house genetics, and our new strains, Mango Passion, Lime Haze, all of these are in-house genetics. What we have done though more recently is we've been able to secure some really, really good Californian genetics. I spoke about the Terpogs. That's how that whole thing started. So, these guys for 80 years have been working on genetics, and it would be a little bit naive of us to think that we can develop the level of genetics that they have in the US. So we now have the ability to access those genetics, and we're running R&D trials on those. So some of them are showing really, really promising signs. So we've got a balance. What we've also done is where we have very popular strains like Royal Moby and Green Gelato are two of the first ones we developed. There's still a very high demand for them, but they're not very modern genetics. They're quite difficult to trim. They don't, the Royal Moby, for example, is prone to mold. So we were actually working with those genetics to improve them by looking at the structure of the plant. We want to get higher levels of cannabinoids and higher yields. So all of those things come through doing pheno huntings and also crossing different strains so that you can get the best of one and the best of the other. It's a bit like, kids marrying each other, coming up with the best kid.
And last question from me, Nan. So what can investors look out for key milestone wise in the next 6 to 12 months?
I think you're going to see a significant uptick in the B2C side. And I think that's, it's a strategic change that we've made. And I think those are the things you've got to watch for. That's the future of the company, building our own brand and also, working with Vesisorb and Terpog. So it's been a shift from that. The B2B was really good for us in Australia because it provided us with a really good platform to grow from. And learn, I guess, and learn how to do this really well. But now we're really backing ourselves to start taking significant market share using our own brand.
Nan, thank you very much for your presentation and for your time. We'll be keeping a close eye on the company and we're looking forward to seeing what's to come. Until then, have a great weekend.
Thank you, Abby. Thanks everyone for joining.